afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're at in the U.S., around the world. Welcome to Baseball Outside the Box, another episode, another day, and we are thrilled because we're bringing you somebody that's going to be so important to the development of the game worldwide. He has done so much around the world, one of the top executives in baseball. He's been an executive for New Zealand, Guam, U.S., Ireland, you name it. We're going to talk about the Irish route and his new position with Ireland, but also the former CEO of New Zealand Baseball. He took New Zealand from, get this, from pretty much the bottom to world rankings with the WBSC. And he did that by expanding youth development and national teams and fundraising. I mean, so much. Not only an executive, a speechwriter for a president of a country and a governor, and a businessman too. Started a coffee company. I mean, he's so well-rounded, and he understands international baseball probably better than most people out there. And he's able to develop it, countries from the grassroots level because he's done it so much. He understands all the inner makings. I'm not even going to waste time because there's so much background with him, and a good friend I've known with ISG Baseball. We've done clinics in New Zealand, so we go back a ways. So I personally know Ryan Flynn, and I love what he does, and I know he's going to make Irish baseball bring it to a new level. So let's welcome, without wasting time, Ryan Flynn. What's up, buddy?
Hey, good to see you, Pete. Thanks so much. Good to read.
I had to do the fastest intro I could with everything you've done. I can't mention it all, but obviously you've done a lot in the game of baseball, and I'm thrilled to have you on, man.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
I'm gonna, like anything else, I want, the show goes to about 120 countries, so it's going to help a lot of coaches, but it also helps a lot of executives. They listen to it, whether it's World Baseball Softball Confederation or whether it's the European Federation, and just countries around the world. You can help them a lot, and you have. But I want to start with your background because who's Ryan Flynn? Where did he start? I mean, you got citizenship in New Zealand, I believe, U.S. You traveled the world. You lived all over. You've had your ups and downs, like we all have, right? So give us a little background on where you grew up and how all this started in baseball.
Of course, yeah. I grew up in Albany, right outside Albany, New York, in a town called Bethlehem, and played high school ball, and then had some scholarship offers and played college ball, NAIA ball. It went D2 while I was there, and wasn't drafted. Wasn't good enough to get drafted for a couple of reasons, and then moved to London, England, and wanted to get away from the game when I was just 21 years old, 22 years old in 93, and then ended up working for Major League Baseball in London. Was one of my first jobs. Yeah, we tore up the
Oval. Like? What were you doing there?
We tore up the Oval cricket grounds and had Buddy Harrelson and Rico Petrocelli as the ambassadors for the Red Sox and Mets, and brought over their minor leaguers to play a couple games, all the way back to the Paul Archie, Tim Brosnan days of Major League Baseball, long time ago. So I've been in the game a long time, but I've been in and out a little bit early on. After England and going around Europe for a while, I made my way to Guam as a journalist with Gannett newspapers, with USA Today, and Guam's part of the United States, obviously, and an amazing place, but not really America, too, at the same time. It's the other side of the world, and a really remarkable island, a lot of close friends there. I just played in their Guam Major League, which was really competitive because I still wanted to play a little bit for fun, and it was a way into the community. And then I took over the national baseball program with a couple friends, and they had a chance to get to the Olympics. Because Australia was the host nation in 2000 in Sydney. So that opened up the top Oceania nation and the top African nation to compete against one another. So we got all the way to Johannesburg in 99 and narrowly missed the final spot in the 2000 Olympics. That's where I cut my teeth on how to build a baseball program, everything. And when people ask, what a national baseball program is, what does that mean? It's really everything from the first time a child touches a ball, T-ball, baseball 5, club ball, school baseball, all the way to the sexy stuff, pro contract, college, WBC, Olympics. And so it's everything in PR, marketing, infrastructure, scouting, leveraging coaches, media, PR, everything. So that's where I learned how to do it. And really I did a bunch of things. I was speechwriter for the president of Palau in the 90s, which was pretty interesting.
And when I saw that, by the way, Ryan, I was a little worried because I'm thinking, oh boy, this guy's a speechwriter. I didn't even know that. And now he's going to start critiquing my show, the way I speak. Sometimes I
Yeah.
speak, slang. Sometimes it's, English or whatever you want to
No,
call
no.
it. It's a
I'm not that
mixture,
kind of
right?
a pompous I'm
Italian.
not that kind of a pompous American. Come on. You know that. So, no, yeah, I've written for Time Out London and New York Daily News and publications, and, writing was what I went to school for besides baseball.
And you
And,
wrote for a president.
yeah, the president of Palau, the first
Wow,
Palau in Micronesia by Guam,
that's
maybe Mike
impressive.
yeah, well, they became an independent nation in '94, and so they had membership with the United Nations, and I wrote speeches for them for a year, and it was an amazing journey. And then I eventually married a woman who was born in Palau in 7 days. So met and married her in 7 days,
Wow.
and
Hey, when you know, you know.
and that's it. That's
Right?
it. So yeah, it's been a wild journey. But yeah, baseball, I moved back to Seattle with my wife, and she was expecting our first child, our daughter Leli, right after we were in New York when the towers came down, and then we moved to Seattle and worked there for a while. And then the Kiwis came calling because they knew of my work in Guam. It's part of the
Hmm.
Oceania region. So I moved out there in 2009, and we had a lot of success. I had a great team around me. There's great athletes in New Zealand. It's one of the most amazing countries in the world, and really built a pretty cool baseball program. I mean, they had the bones. They had a few hundred players, and they had few clubs in Auckland, mostly Auckland, and you just have world class athletes, either Caucasian, Maori, Pacific Islander, Tongan, Fijian, some of the best athletes I've ever been around, and great sporting tradition with the All Blacks and everything. And so everything kind of we touched worked, and founded the Auckland Tuatara that played in the Australian Baseball League. And that was a big deal because when we started, we only had a few hundred players in the country. We got all the way to the point where we had a professional baseball team in Auckland that the government contributed $2 million to blow out a rugby soccer pitch to make it wider for baseball. And so I was really proud of all that our little team accomplished. I had an amazing team around me, and we did big things. And then I resigned and started an organic coffee farm in Palau, as one does on family land. And then COVID hit, and was separated from my family for years, which was a little rough, to say the least. And then worked my way back to New Zealand when the country really opened up, and then made my way to Australia, where I've been the past 3 years helping build the game in Canberra and Melbourne, until this Ireland opportunity just arose of late.
Yeah, I wanted to go back. I know we're talking baseball here, folks, but I love the coffee part because I love coffee.
Yeah, of course.
I would have been buying a lot of your coffee, trust me,
I know
because
that.
I think as an Italian man, I have that all the time. But how was that experience business wise? That was that.
I didn't really, it was a big gamble. I had planned to go away for just a little bit for my wife and kids in Auckland, and what turned into a few month trip, what was a planned few month trip turned into a 2.5 year expedition across the world to try to get back to my house, do the lockdowns in Palau and then New Zealand. And so we started off really on a high note. We had the land, we had the aquifer, the water source. We worked with the Taiwanese government. They found us, a team of experts found us a hybrid blend, Pete, of Robusta and Arabica that would work at
Hmm.
the lower elevation. So we had really high hopes to diversify the economy of another island nation that I really love. I really love Palau. My children are half Palau, and I love the people, and
Nice.
I love the nation. And it just everything kind of went south when COVID hit. We couldn't bring resources in. We were just kind of stuck. And so it was the wrong time to start
Were
a
you guys
coffee
gonna
company.
you guys were gonna be roasting the coffee more than anything, not growing
Yeah,
it.
we were growing it. We had the land to grow.
Growing it.
Yeah, we were growing it, and
Nice.
it was going to be, I think it was going to be a big help to the economy as well, because a lot of the Pacific islands are tourism based, or government assisted by foreign governments. And so it was a two-prong approach, that we were going to build something sustainable for Palau, and also do something, come up with a unique blend that would be a niche in the global coffee trade. So we had coffee
Well,
experts on board and everything.
and you know what? Maybe a little suggestion. You know, Irish baseball. We're going to talk about in a minute. But I know you follow the World Baseball Classic. So if the Italians used espresso in the dugout and it helped them a lot get excited, I think that's got to be an Irish thing sooner or later. Because I know you
Well,
can't
we
have
can't
beer in the dugout, so
they
you
can't
have
drink Guinness.
coffee.
No, they can't drink Guinness. That's the problem in the
No.
dugout. They feel pretty weighted down with a pint of Guinness as well, a pint of any stout for sure, or some Irish whiskey. Um, we'll get to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I get it. All right, listen, the other part is give us a little background before we get into the Irish baseball. A little background on in developing the sport worldwide. What have you seen? You know, I have an idea of what I've seen, but what have you seen that is kind of the things that happen the most, why most countries are successful? And I'm not talking about the US that has 26 million amateur players. I'm not talking about Dominican and Japan and a lot
Japanese,
of these countries.
of course.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about, you know, the smaller countries like New Zealand, like Australia, like Canada, like Cuba. Cuba even doesn't have as many players as people think they do.
Yep.
And then I can say that because I've been there 9 times and worked with the federation.
Yep.
The common denominators that you've seen that helped grow the game and make a country successful. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it's a very individual initiative when the game's growing. You look at Canada, they're close to the United States, so they can move players in and out. And, there's a lot of cross pollination. I think I've always looked at it, you've got your first tier that you've described that they don't need any help. They don't need someone like me or you to really come in. You
Mm-hmm.
can you can go in and enjoy it and have some fun, but they don't need it's it's the next tier really, or maybe the third tier. There's only a certain amount of those countries that have the will or the desire, um, and do they have the resources? I mean, I've seen it all. You go from Guam, 170,000 people. Well, that was a U.S. Territory, Pete. So they grew up playing the game, and so they're
Sure.
U.S. kids, and back and forth with it, and that's what they knew. In New Zealand, they didn't
You
grow up
didn't
with the
have
game.
that. Yep.
No, but they
Yep.
but what you had was a whole population of great athletes that swung a bat
Athletes.
in cricket or softball.
Okay.
Remember, they're world class in fast pitch softball, and,
Yeah,
and
that's
the
true.
best, like world class athletes. And that's what surprised me when I got there. I was like, well, why are you guys playing softball, not baseball, when you guys could all be pros and college players and play, top
Yeah.
baseball? And so that's what a big advantage I had in New Zealand. So I think every country's different. We talked before we got on air about the Czechs who've really built a
Mm-hmm.
homegrown pro, but then you talk the Israelis, UK, who maybe have not done as much domestically, are trying to. I don't know exactly where they're at this point. I've been out of it for a little bit, but have gotten teams to the Olympics and the WBC of American or North American based pro and college players. There's a lot of different ways. A lot of it comes down to a will of a few people that really want to see it go to the next level and believe it's possible. Um, and then you just dig in. I believe baseball can be grown anywhere in Africa, any part. Look, the Philippines has had a good baseball, but they don't have great adult baseball, but they have good youth baseball and they have a long history. But when we played the Philippines in the WBC, when I was with New Zealand, they were mostly their players were Filipino Americans, Phil M's that played college, pro, and Major League Baseball. So there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, but at the bottom line is you have to have a board or an executives that really believe you can build a baseball program anywhere as a minority sport in a country that didn't really grow up with the game. You've got to have that belief. And like the Czechs, the Germans, they've believed that they could build something, in Europe that wasn't part of their culture really, other than the ones that went to America, and they've done it. So it can be grown really anywhere if you have the will to do it, and a lot of times it comes down to a few people at the top that want to give it everything passionately and get it to a point, but it's a tough game. to get it over the
But
line.
that's a good point. That's a real good point. It really does matter, individual countries because of their culture, because of what, like you said, Canada's close to the US, all those things. So it is individual in some ways. Hey, listen, for the folks out there, 120 countries, thank you for listening to Baseball Outside the Box. Keep sharing the show. Don't forget Spotify, Baseball Outside the Box. You go YouTube, Peter Caliendo. You can watch it live. Also on Facebook. You got any questions? We got some people on Facebook. Any questions for Ryan about the game of baseball? Just ask. I'll try to ask it on the. I'll look at the comments section. I got to tell you, people around the world, Ryan, baseball is going to be so much better with you back into the game. No doubt
Thanks.
about it. So
Thank you.
congratulations on that. And this is where we're going to start talking about Irish baseball, because how did this happen? I know you got Irish background, obviously Flynn. You told me about Dublin, 1830.
Mhm.
Albany, New York, and all that. So explain to the folks how all this came about.
Well, I've always thought of Ireland, because I'm like one of the few or only people in the world that travels to build baseball programs globally. So the competition isn't too harsh for this role, because not a lot of people do it or want to do it apparently. Um, I started talking to the Irish when I was stuck in Palau. And we had some great conversations with the board of directors. And I was thinking, what am I going to do next if this coffee thing doesn't go, because we're stuck? So I was keeping the door open. And we had a good talk, but it was COVID and nobody could really move. And they had just put money in Strike Zone, their really great indoor center in Dublin, and a long-term
Mm-hmm.
lease. And they already had a direction, and we had great conversations. And then I moved on with life, COVID, everything, and they did too. And we reconnected in the past several months, and I just said, "How you doing? Are you making moves? Are you going forward?" I mean, I'm a Flynn, and I care about Ireland. I care about international baseball, and we just engaged quickly and pounded out a deal that would work for all sides. And so um, I'm a big believer that, again, you can build the game anywhere. It's a very special place for my family and I, being a Flynn. I was raised a very strict Irish Catholic in upstate New York, and it's pretty exciting to be a part of something with a board of directors that wants to make a move. And you can always say, I've faced the same thing many times. Um, it takes a while to mature a program, generation or two or three to mature
Mm-hmm.
any sports program when you're starting at the ground level. But you can condense that timeline with the right moves and the right people in place. And that's what I've said to the board of directors, and that's what I'm attempting to do. I'll be in the Northeast for a few months, raising awareness and money, and then heading to Dublin, which is really exciting. I can't wait.
Dublin, what I tell you what, first of all, Ireland, great country. Dublin, what a city. Just to give you an idea, make a long story short, I had a little history when I went to Ireland with my wife, and then unfortunately something happened. One of our friends passed away. My wife had to go back, and I was coming from Scotland to Dublin. We were both supposed to go there at the time. Well, she couldn't go, so she went home. So, but I figured I might as well continue on to Dublin, right? Didn't have a
Yeah.
hotel in Dublin, and we figured I just get one when I get there. Well, lo and behold, there's no hotels anywhere because Michael Bublé is playing in Dublin,
Oh,
and
goodness.
everything is sold out. I ended up walking downtown Dublin for hours. I finally found the university at a high price. I stayed in a dorm of a university because they were selling those dorms. They were making money.
Unbelievable.
That was my experience there. But it's a great place. I loved it. Is this Ryan Flynn's greatest challenge in the game of baseball, you think?
I would say, although if you ask me different steps of the way, I would say, though, that's my greatest challenge. That's my greatest challenge. I mean, I went to New Zealand sight unseen, just
Wow.
based on friendships and based on the belief that world-class athletes but the Irish built the game in this country. They just didn't
Ah,
reciprocate and bring it back home. And so I would say this is a big challenge. There were advantages, like I said, with the softball players in New Zealand. Now there's more right now, there's more Irish players than there were Kiwi players when I arrived. So there's more
Mm.
Irish players right now and more clubs, but I think there's probably obstacles that I don't even know about yet. There's probably some funding. New Zealand had more funding at the time because they had something called TAB, which is betting on the game of baseball. They got a certain percentage, so they had a general fund budget every year. And I was their first CEO as well. They had an executive director and coaches before me. So I I'd say this is probably my biggest challenge. I'd like to believe I'm wiser, now
Oh,
to
no
deal with
doubt.
some of these challenges.
Hey, and also you're pretty smart too, because New Zealand, Guam, Ireland, Australia. You're picking some beautiful countries with great people, unbelievable places.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate, but there is a certain, look, Australia is not a shabby baseball country. They're ninth
No,
in the
they're
world.
top.
They have world-class players, coaches, scouts. A lot of them are friends. Lloydie, David Nielsen, the current
Yep, they've done
crop,
a great job.
great guys, but they're a minority sport in Australia. You still walk around Australia and people will say, "Do we play baseball in Australia?" And that's the thing that bothers when you're a minority sport in any country around the world. It's a different set of challenges, and you hear it all the time. We play baseball in Ireland. We play baseball in New Zealand. And you never want to hear that. So for me, I always say, and you remember, Ireland and New Zealand have a similar size population, just over 5 million both. And
Ah.
so um, I always say that we'll let every person know in the country that we have baseball, and then we'll work backwards from there. And so a lot of my thing is whatever we do on the field, we have to market it and PR the heck out of it and let people know even small victories and let them know we're here. Content, let people know we're coming. And then once you let people know and and children find the game not by coincidence or chance, they find the game because it's one of the sports that's available in their towns. Um, then it turns and then it turns and then people, everybody, when I first got to New Zealand, everybody found it by chance. They saw a kid throwing a ball and said, "What are you doing?" Or they went to a little clinic at a school and said, "I like that," to their mom and dad. We have to do a lot of that. We've got to get a lot of kids playing 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. You can't come to the game of baseball at 23 and light the world on fire. That would be the rarest thing. It's just a hard game to play. And so we've got to get kids early, just like anywhere in the world. A lot of the lessons are exactly the same, exactly the same. And so, for me, it's another English speaking country and it's my homeland, really, for my family. And so it's a very special opportunity, but it's a very challenging opportunity. And that's probably why a lot of people don't do it or want to do it or know how to do it, I guess.
Have you had the chance to get on the ground and see somebody? Probably not to see the players or kids or
No,
anything.
only from video. Only from video. We've got a few college players that have broken through over here playing
Mhm.
college ball. I mean, obviously, there's a ton of Irish Americans
Sure.
that are eligible that play at a higher level, but I don't have all of those lists yet. Not worried about it. I didn't have any lists when I went to any other place either, and
Well, I
so I
know,
just
I know you. I mean, you're going to be extremely organized and detailed and attacking certain areas. So, what do you think are right now in Ireland? What do you think your main goals are to start with? I mean, funding's always number one, obviously. Without that, you
funding's number
can't do
one.
anything.
Funding's number one, and to reach the diaspora over here over the next few months to get people on board in different ways. I can find teams that want to come over. I can find that, but we have to secure some funding, and I do believe it'll be easier to find funding from the people who care sending it back to their homeland than it is right away in Ireland. But I have to have a combination of those two: raising money in Ireland, grants, and multinational corporations. There's Japanese corporations. I've already talked to the Taiwanese about wanting to do something together. So it doesn't matter where the baseball money or expertise comes from. I'm going to track it down. But I'd say we've got to get the clubs bolstered. Remember, just like New Zealand, Auckland has a core group of the baseball players, and
Hmm.
so does Dublin. And so if you're in Cork or Belfast, sometimes you feel a little far away from what's happening in the big smoke. And so you've got to logistically work out the fact that you don't have as many fields. You need to go indoors to train. You've got to work with schools and figure out how to do that so the kids aren't shortchanged. You've got to upskill your coaches pretty darn quickly. You know, any adult really can teach 4 or 5 year olds, but once you start, kids 9, 10, 11, and start learning, then you've got to really get coaches that can really cite things and and so I think really getting a group of coaches upskilled. I've already talked to Chris Woodward with the Dodgers and others about sending coaches to spring training because that's a great reward for these thankless jobs. And you've got to remember this, Pete. When it's a minority sport and it's hard to get to the game. You've got to put up the backstops yourself on the field. You've got to spend hours before and after, where you could just play rugby or hurling or Gaelic football or soccer or basketball, just show up and play. This takes a lot of effort. So you have to have incentives, and you've got to grow the game from the top down and the bottom up. So you've got to grow the game from grassroots, but you've got to have, again, the sexy things at top to keep these families charging forward with something that they can see that there's an end line and there's something there if things go their way. And so to me, I've always said it, grow the game from the bottom down and from the top down and the bottom up, always. And that's how
Man,
I'll go.
I'm thrilled to hear that because I can't imagine how many conversations that I have had with federations about make sure that you focus on both growing the game at the grassroots level and the national teams because they're like you said, the goal that they have. And
Gotta
one of
be
the
there.
challenges, and one of the challenges I would assume is going to be. I saw this in Belgium 20, 25 years ago because Belgium's very similar. Not a lot of players, pretty good athletes, and I was very impressed. And but it takes. You mentioned it. A lot of the clubs that are in the outskirts sometimes don't feel like they're part of the program. You got to make them part of the program. It's got to be the whole country. It can't be factions of the country. I get
No,
that.
it can't be a Dublin only sport or an Auckland only sport. And you got to
Yeah,
work at that. But that takes time too, because you kind of, if you want to grow your strength is where your population base is in Dublin, you grow out from there while trying
sure.
to connect the dots. And there's a lot that goes into that logistically. And but a lot of it too is just working hard for the clubs, and helping them secure land, funding, donated equipment, coaches. When I brought Didi Gregorius, who's an amazing ball player,
I
amazing guy.
remember that.
Yeah, I remember
Yes.
I brought him out. He was there when Jim Cott and AJ Preller were in New Zealand. We were the baseball hub of the Southern Hemisphere at that time.
Yeah, and MLB was not too happy when he decided to jump off the roof on whatever that was.
No, no, they weren't happy when 5 years earlier when Curtis Grandison rode a motorcycle when I brought Curtis out.
Is that what?
Um, yeah, so
I messed
yeah,
with it.
I always get scolded by Major League Baseball, but that's okay. That's okay. It's not for a lack of passion and trying to be heard. It's hard to be heard if you're not one of the big markets. It's hard to get the
Sure.
resources, and Jim Small and others were very helpful to me over the years. Tom Nicholson in Australia in putting some funding behind our efforts. They knew we were working hard, and I had Paul Goldschmidt out and Derek Hall, and I had Jim Cott, Mark Melanson, Chris Woodward, Daryl Evans, Jay
The big
Bell,
names.
Ron Renicky.
Wow.
I probably had more Major League Baseball coaches and players and former players and coaches than probably any other country in the world other than America, or, at a certain
Wow.
time. And what they did was they got a little vacation sometimes, but they put a nice holiday package for some of them together, but they taught the game and they were all over the media and they showed, Curtis isn't a big guy, but he was hitting 40 home runs a year. They showed that it was approachable. You can grow up anywhere. You can grow up in Curacao like Didi in a small island and make it. They really kind of connected the dots and narrowed, the big picture down to small, like we can do it too. Anything's possible. And I used you got to use every advantage when you're in a minority sport. That things people take advantage in bigger baseball countries. You got
You
to use
know,
every.
and also, what's interesting you mentioned because some of the things you just mentioned is going to give that country publicity. Kids are going to see it because one of my questions is, and this is an important one. What it's not easy to grow the grassroots level when it's not your national sport and you got soccer competing against it. What are some of the goals that you need to accomplish to be able to grow the game at the younger levels? Because the game's not going to grow unless you get the young kids playing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the success that we've had at different programs, Canberra did a really good job. ACT, when I was in Australia, a guy by the name of Chris Hansen, subsidizing a T-ball program. So for $20 to play 8 to 10 weeks, for an hour every Sunday or Saturday, depending on the year, they switched. We switched it. You'd get a ball, a cap, a shirt, and a glove. A little cheap beginner's glove for a 4 or 5 year old or a 6 year old. I think we've got to get a lot of people to the game and let them have fun with the game. That's the initial, but you've got to retain them as well, and that's a big deal. I'll be working on that and working with the clubs, and then trying to put some school programs together and connecting the schools to the nearby clubs. So trying to work outward from the clubs at the schools that are closest, and trying to convince. I'll try, raising money to get some coaches over will be big. I'm a believer in the top down, hire an executive, whether me or somebody else, raising the money, putting the infrastructure in place, and then letting coaches coach, but getting some
Mhm.
decent upskilling current coaches, hiring local coaches, bringing some coaches coming in and out. That'll be crucial. I mean, I've been in programs where I was said we should shut down the adults are just for fun right now, but we've really got to focus on 4 to 10 year olds. And we can
Yep.
get a few thousand of them. The pyramid will work. They'll have the competition that they need. And you've got to work around, again, weather, like in Ireland and New Zealand, a lot of rain. You've got to work around lack of facilities. And you've just got to find really good people. I was able to build a staff in various places like New Zealand, a really good staff that we all thought the same way. And my messaging never changed ever from day one. Our messaging was like, we're coming for you. And we didn't bow down to the All Blacks or the Black Caps in cricket. It's a competition for athletes and money in every country, in every city, in every county in the world. And you do it gracefully, and with honor, but you're competitive when it comes to chasing athletes and good people and money, grant money. You have to do it. And that I think a lot of that will be the same no matter where I go. Again, certain monies will be available in Ireland that wasn't available in New Zealand, and vice versa. So I'm learning every day what's available and what's not. But I'm hoping, again, the Irish Americans like me, want the merchandise, want to be a part of this, want to grow something, want to be a part of something really. It's rare in life when you can build a national baseball program and take it from here all the way up here in a 10-year period, let's say, and do some remarkable things and help a lot of kids and adults do, dream. I feel like a dream maker. When it's all moving, you try to help everyone do what they want to do with the game. Everyone is just have fun, travel a bit, go to college, because baseball is the great sport that you can say to any 17-year-old boy at this point, mostly, unfortunately, but girls are having more opportunities come up every day with the league in America and the one in Japan. But you can say to a kid, hey, you can play baseball in America. It might be D3, it might be D2, it might be JUCO, it might be NAIA, it might be D1, but you can play if you work hard and you've got a tool or two. We'll find you a place. And we've got the Ripken World Series, we've got Pony with Abe Key, we've got Little League. That's something other sports don't have as well, that you can say to families, look, we can do these things that no kid in any other sport can do at that level. And so those are the things I use, the advantages that baseball has, I believe, over some other sports.
Yeah, you also mentioned, I think, a key point. Hopefully, everybody got it. The importance of getting, and I use simple English, getting players and keeping players. And the only people that can do that are the coaches. Now,
Right.
parents can help because if you have a three-prong, in my opinion, if parents, coaches, and players are on the same page in some
Yep.
ways, the
Yep.
education is better. The goals go forward faster. But
Yep.
here's my question about coaches. Those guys and gals are so important, and women are very good at this because they're a little bit more sympathetic with, especially the real younger kids.
Yes, most
Um,
definitely.
there's got to be an incentive for the coaches too, and I'm not saying always financial. Some countries are starting to give a stipend monthly to some
Yep.
volunteer coaches because that's
Perpetual
an
stuff.
incentive because they're all working right full
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Um, but the coaching aspect is so important. what's your goal there? I know ISG, obviously we've gone there and done coaching clinics, but coaching clinics are one thing. That's like a conference, right? There's a lot of education, a lot of socializing and learning from each other. But as far as continual education, and I bring this up, Ryan, because earlier I had asked you offline about common denominators, of countries that are successful, and you brought up a great point. Every country is different, but one common denominator that I've seen, whether it's Canada, Australia, but you want to include New Zealand, Cuba, Czech Republic, even Curacao and some others that are smaller countries, is coaches' education. They have a continual program. So what's your goal there?
Well, I mean, in the past, I've begged and borrowed. You don't have to recreate the wheel. The
Right.
Canadians, the Americans have all, if you're going to say in English, I mean, obviously the Japanese, Koreans, Taiwanese, the Dominicans, Venezuelans have all done a great job. Even in Europe, I mean, the Italians and the Dutch have been the historic big two before the Czechs and
Sure.
UK and everybody else has risen up. Uh, I agree. I think, coach education will be constant. A continuous stream of coaches coming back and forth is my goal. If we can pull that off. I mean, I was able to pull that goal off in New Zealand in particular because I was able to get the help. I was able to secure grants. I was able to get the help of hotels like Sky City Hotel in Auckland, if you remember that big hotel
Yeah.
with the sky.
Oh, yeah. Remember
I
it
was able
well.
to get airline support, I'll be working on all of that support to make that journey. I mean, you can never take your eye off of coach education. There does need to be incentives. I can't say right away we would have stipends right out of the gate because we can't, we're
Yeah.
just starting
Of
out. But
course.
I, but
Of
I,
course.
but I do believe you have to value, you have to huddle people up, you have to keep them in the limelight, keep thanking them. I mean, when I'm at my best too, it's kind of I'm talking to these coaches the coaches that I trust, and they have an open line to talk to me about issues. I connect them with top coaches around the world. It's just a constant. I'll probably beg Paul Seiler from USA Baseball for their coaches program,
Yeah.
to because it's already there,
Yeah.
and I've done that before with him, and they've been very generous. USA Baseball, and they've spent millions on their programs, and so why try to do that any differently? We could tweak it a little bit, but why? And so that's what I'll be doing constantly. I'll try to do the same with the umpires too, because that's important as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can self-call a game, but if you can build up a group of umpires like we did in New Zealand and other places, then your life is a lot better. And that was finding incentives for them too to get hook up with the WBSC and for Warren Van Ruin and others to travel and do big games around the world and global championship, world championship events. So everything will be on the table. Right now, I'm fielding calls from people all over the country and the world that want to be a part of it, and just seeing what sticks on the wall and working on our messaging, our branding, merchandise line, and going to some of the big hitters, hoping to speak in front of the Irish American foundations and societies in New York, Boston, Chicago, and just running around and saying, we need your help right now, kind of cap in hand. We need this is it. This is the time. We're gonna do some big things and make everybody back here proud of the Irish kids.
Yeah, and what you brought up about trying to get the Irish American people on board, I think that's going to be big, and there's a precedent because there's a couple countries already that have done that, been successful raising funds in the U.S. So I think that's going to be a big deal for you. The other thing I wanted to ask you, something that's happening in Europe, I think that can be helpful to a lot of the countries in Europe. And I just think they got to be careful that they don't take it too far, because in America, as you know, we've taken it a little too far, and that is tournaments. Now kids see other opportunities in Europe, right? They can go to the other countries and play in tournaments, whether it's pony baseball, which runs great events. That's an incentive to keep the game growing, because they got better opportunities to do, not just go to the U.S., but also play it all over Europe.
Oh yeah, we have the European Championships, obviously.
For national teams, yes.
Yes, for the national teams. But I think there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, it gets expensive traveling to America, obviously, but there's a lot of opportunities. I'm going to lean on Abe and
Yeah.
and Robert Flaherty and Rob with Babe Ruth and Ripken, and remember Billy, Cal, and Rob and everybody, Robert, they let New Zealand's under 12 team in the Ripken World Series in Aberdeen sight unseen with me traveling to Aberdeen saying, hey, we've got good athletes. We won't look ridiculous on the field. And DJ Carrasco was one of our coaches, and
Nice.
and the former Met pitcher. And so we showed up and we got better and better and better. And we ensured that the Ripken World Series in New Zealand was viewed as the biggest tournament in the world for 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And it brought a lot of kids to the game because, again, there's no other sport where a 10-year-old can go get outfitted in Under Armour and live like a little, king or queen. We have girls on those teams as well, and they
Mhm.
they can be treated like, they're superstars. And that's a huge incentive, again, for kids to work hard. You've got to have those incentives there. So I'm hoping to put all of that in place. I don't I don't know about, perfect game and how big a business it is here in America. That's not where we're at or thinking that way. But there's got to be trips and teams and something to aspire to for these kids to keep playing every day.
Hey, when somebody hires a guy like now, you've been through this, so I want to get your opinion on how you're going to deal with it. Just this is more for obviously giving people information out there in other countries when they have to go through some of this stuff. I remember in Belgium and some other countries, you hire Ryan Flynn, you want results right away. Well, results don't come in 6 months or 5 months. How are you going to handle the challenge of people expecting things to go faster than they normally go in this type of business?
Well, I don't know. With this board of directors, I've met a majority of them. I'm in the process of talking to each other. They've been online and they decided to go with me.
Sure. Well, but what about the coaches, the
Well,
parents,
I
people
don't
in
I
general?
don't I don't I don't think I'm not really worried about that because I think we can score. I think I know the easy pickings to score some victories right away where the
Hmm.
ripe fruit is,
They can
to
see
show
it.
people it's a game of momentum when
Yeah.
you're building a program, and you don't want to take your foot off the pedal, but at the same time you've got to be realistic. So, I think I've learned that over time. I think I was probably even more aggressive when, as we are when we're younger, like we're gonna
Right. It
take over
wasn't
the
crazy.
world, but I've been humbled quite a bit by
I've
COVID
done
and life,
that.
and,
Yep.
baseball humbles you whether you're a player, coach, or administrator, I can tell you that.
Absolutely.
Um, so I think I know where the low-hanging fruit is, where we can score some big victories right out of the gate that can get people enthused. Look, you again, you've got to get people worked up in a positive way. Like, you can't sell the program and say, well, in 100 years, Irish baseball might be pretty good. When you're
Right.
dead and your children are dead, maybe we'll be, you've got to say, well, we're going, a program can be built anywhere if you have the will and the passion and people come together as a group and say, okay, yeah, why can't our kid make it all the way or do this or go on this trip? Because they can do it on little islands, they can do it anywhere. So we just got to convince people it's possible. And I'm not selling America, even though I'm an American and a Kiwi by citizenship. I'm selling a great game with a ton of opportunities, but I'm not selling the country. It's a global game. It just happened to originate in America. That's all.
Sure. And
That's how I
what
look at it.
about the infrastructure right now in Irish baseball fields, indoor
Yeah,
facilities?
they've got a couple. Well, they've got Strike Zone. They've got a
Yeah.
great indoor facility in Dublin that, they subsidize a little bit, but it would look good in any American city for sure. It's a good one. And the national team, the academy train there. Got 8 clubs. Waterford's just building a club now. E Look, there's not enough youth baseball. That's been clear to me, made clear to
Mhm.
me. It's great for adults to play. You want them to play, but if people my age, 54 are playing, it's fun and enjoy it, but it's recreational, fun baseball. But they're the parents. They have good job. You want them to invest in the future, you know, and say, look, I didn't have it when I was young, but I want children and grandchildren to have more opportunities. Again, Dublin's the center of everything. Remember, the O'Malley's built the O'Malley's built a
Oh,
field, two
yeah.
fields, a youth, a diamond.
Yeah.
So they were very effective. The board and a couple members are still there. Ann and Mike and Sean and John, they were there. They got the O'Malleys to come in, and there's a fundraiser over here, Mike Walsh, that's in Rhode Island, that's helped them raise money with the O'Malleys and others for one-off projects. But now it's got to be a concerted effort to raise money to build a real program, annually, all the time from multiple different sources. So there's a lot of work to do. But when I, you know, when if the momentum takes off like we believe it will, then people have a tendency to call from other parts of the country and say we want a baseball club. And I'll say to them, okay, you're the president. Let's go. Name it. Let's go.
Started.
Get the logos. You're a club. You find a board of directors. They'll be interim. You name them. I don't care if they're friends or family for the first year. Then there'll be election after 12 months. I'll come in, help you with equipment, coaching, get you over here. I'll get over there. That's how I work, very hands on, very grassroots. Get in there, meet with council, get land. It's a lot of common sense kind of stuff, but you
Hmm.
just got to work and stay in their face. And a lot of times when you're alone building a club, it's lonely and hard, difficult. But if they have a sounding board all the time, which I generally am, or my staff or people, and you connect the dots, then they feel not like they're not alone, and they can do anything.
And that's another area, equipment. That's something that's important, obviously, because these clubs are going to need equipment. So there's got to
Well,
be
I
a partner.
when I got to New Zealand, baseballs were rare. I had all the equipment and the national team equipment in our garage in East Auckland and Pakuranga, my wife and I at the time, Jenny Fair, and it was just us and people, the coaches had to come to my garage, and I had to open the door and hand them some gloves from 1972. But what one thing I did was get a grant pretty early, and for baseballs. So I got like $10,000 worth of baseballs every year from a local foundation. And I was handing those baseballs out like they were M&Ms or candy, so people would feel a ball in their hand, what it felt like, and go play catch with dad or and so that I still went into the woods to get foul balls. Of course, we didn't, we knew they were valued at $7 a piece, whatever. But I think that's important to get the gear out. And there's a lot of people in America that will donate gear and around the world, the Japanese, and I'll call
Hmm.
on those people to help lift us up until we can buy our own for clubs.
Ryan, you see this in a lot of federations, and it happens even in the U.S. Obviously, the U.S. Has all kinds of programs around the country and different organizations. USA Baseball is the governing body of the sport, and they try to they do a great job. They can only control so much. Obviously, everybody's going kind of doing their own thing.
Right.
In Ireland or in other parts of Europe, you got clubs, right? So a lot of clubs have their own goals and the way they see things, the way they want to do it. And bringing these clubs together is not an easy task.
No,
How do you
no.
handle that?
Well, I mean, the art of diplomacy or the art
Yeah,
of war. I don't
yeah, you've
know.
been through
It's
it.
it can be tough. You've got some look, I like passionate personalities, even if they want to argue with me, because at least they're
Sure.
passionate about growing the game. And
Yeah.
so you just try to
Good
find
point.
big tent issues and try to help every club equally. Obviously, when I moved to a country, I've got even when my son played at several clubs in Auckland, I had no skin in the game. I didn't whatever club does the best and wins the championships and builds the fields, I want all of them. I'm trying to lift the water in the harbor, higher, so all the boats rise at the same time. And so it's constantly working between. I think one thing is important. I brought this up with the Board of Ireland when I got to New Zealand. It was smaller as well, and you learn that a club president was on the regional board of the Auckland Baseball Association, could also be on the board of Baseball New Zealand, wearing three hats. That's when it gets a little dicey, because what hat are you wearing in this meeting? And so you try to bring more people to the game. The more people you bring to the game, um, it can water down a lot of issues because you've got many people moving in the same direction instead of just a few. And so I think that's going to be important as well, to try to get a lot of momentum and bring a lot of people to the game and hear many different voices rather than just the same three voices. That's
Well, I'll
important.
tell you what, I said it at the beginning of the show, and I'll say it again. They could not have picked a better person. And just to get you is incredible because I know that's not easy. And I know, Irish baseball doesn't have a lot of money, so it's not the money part. You're one of these guys that you'll grow the game, you'll develop the funds, you'll get all that going. It's the challenge that you love because that's what I love. It in coaching, same thing. The challenge behind it. So I think they've pulled off a major coup here, and I
Thanks.
think I really think we're going to see some great things in Irish baseball. The other part of this is, um, you've got to deal with the national teams, right? So it's picking national team coaches. And also picking national team players. A lot of politics in that, so you're gonna have to filter through all that. That's another aspect of or dynamics of developing, baseball in a country.
Yeah, well, I've been through all of that, as you can imagine. I've been through
Yeah.
every angle. I've been through new players, foreign-based players. When you talk about the men's team, I've been through all of that, and it can be contentious. People that have been in the program a long time, or people new to the program, and who do you take, and what grows the game on the ground if you take more of these players or more of those players. And so I know I'm going to have to wade into this, and I already have a little bit. Um, the people that built the game, a bunch of them are still the ones that did the hard yards are still on the board of directors, and they care
Nice.
about the game a great deal. I mean, it's their baby. And so you want to protect that, but you want to also say, when someone says to you, well, in 3 generations, like I said to you before, we can be a mature baseball program. No, we can get a lot done in 10 years. We can condense that timeline, and we can do some great things in that timeline. And we have the responsibility, if we're running a national body for the country, it's the country's national body.
Hmm.
It's not mine. I didn't own Baseball New Zealand. Baseball New Zealand was more my baby in a way, I felt, than anything else that I've ever done, but it wasn't mine. It's the country's. And so other people come along and take it to the next level, and then the next level, and you're there for a time and for a reason and for a season. And so for me, again, I think you can have some exciting things happening. I think you need to at the top, and you need to be truthful with your players at what level they're at and where they play the game. And you've got to be honest about that. And so I think we'll have some big discussions when it comes to selecting national teams in the near future. But I welcome those discussions. At the end of the day, the board employs me, and I work for the board of directors. So I'm not a renegade or a rogue, but I'm very passionate. I'm very competitive, and I think we can do some big things. If you go to the Cooperstown Hall of Fame, the greatest place in the world, um, you'll see the first 50 Hall of Fame inductees. Probably about half were Irish. And so the
Yeah.
Irish built this game here, and it's time to reciprocate and build it over there, and join up with the other great European nations that are doing some really good work.
Hey, you're also a Flynn, so they can't go. They can't be saying, "Hey, we got an outsider coming in." No, no,
Yeah, they'll
no.
probably
You're
they'll
as
probably say
American.
they'll probably say it anyways with the state of the world right now. They'll hear my accent, and my partner in Australia, she'll say, "You're Irish." I said, "Well, I'm not really Irish. I'm American. I'm Irish American. I don't know how. I never pretend that when I travel to a new country, that I'm like, I don't fake an accent. I don't,
Right.
I'm me, and this is what I do. And, I think I've always stayed true to that. I respect cultures. I've been everywhere. I love the world. I love being a global citizen. I don't care if that sounds corny. I'm not a big nationalist in any way. I just love people in every corner of the globe. Travel has been my life, and I and I'm very thankful for that. And I think this is one of the great opportunities in my life. This is kind of a culmination of a lot of work that if we can do this one, we can, do it anywhere, really.
Yeah, and if you're in America, you say you're American Irish. If you're in Ireland, you tell them you're Irish American. How's that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure they'll take the piss out of me when we're having our first Guinness, and
Hey,
that's all right.
listen. No,
That's all right.
listen. This has been awesome. And here's the thing. Um, I know we missed something. Is there something out there, because it's a learning experience for other people that are in federations around the world that can help them grow the game? So anything we missed that needed to be said that helps,
Well, not
anybody
the
else
nitty
grow
gritty,
the game?
Pete. Well, it's hard to get in the nitty gritty. There's the basic things as baseball folks. If the baseball folks are listening, they'll know. Well, we've got to upskill coaches. We need more players. We need to raise money. We need to. A lot of it is how you do it, and that's a day to day thing. And anybody can always contact me. Any of your listeners, you can put them in touch with me. I mean, we all have our own ways. For me, lead by example, lead from the front, uh, be a part of everything, grow a good team. Leadership is growing a good team, putting a ton of good people. I mean, my board has amazing people that are professionals, and I'm going to rely on them to open doors. And you want a board, good governance, and not really operational unless you really need them. You want good governance and open doors. That's what I look for from a board of directors. And I know that's what we have in Ireland. That's what I had in New Zealand as well, in Canberra, Guam. Um, so I don't think, without getting into the nitty gritty, I mean, a lot of it is, building momentum. I target sponsors right out of the gate in kind a lot that'll wipe away a line item in my P&L. I'll go
Mm.
after an airline, a car rental company, a hotel that allow me the flexibility to move things around. I'll bulk buy, run all the national teams through our P&L. So nobody feels alone, and we're getting discounts and rates. And I'll be raising money, even hopefully helping individuals and teams raise money when things get tight. You want the game to be accessible for those that don't have a lot. And
Mm.
sometimes in America and other places you get away from that because of all the costs of travel teams. I think it's a hallmark of the things I do that I try to make the game affordable and accessible for every kid. You want the wealthy, the middle class, and the poor families. You want their kids to have the opportunity to play ball. And if you have that, you're in a good place. You want every race to play the game, every ethnic background to play the game. And I work very hard on that too. It's for everyone. The game's for everyone. And
Yeah, like
that's
you said, it boys, girls, doesn't matter who, as long as you can play. Hey, let's get them
absolutely.
involved.
Yeah,
What?
remember, there's plenty of girls in every country in the world that grow up with their dad playing catch that love baseball even more than softball, and they want those opportunities too. So you've got to find them opportunities. It's harder to do because you can't say to a young girl, even she's talented, well, you've got Division 1 opportunities and there's limited opportunities, but you still got to find them and work just as hard.
Well, I've been lucky. I was at the Women's World Cup a while back in Japan. I've seen the national teams around the world. Now I'm working in Rockford, WBSC, as a technical commissioner coming up, which is a
Yeah,
qualifier for the women's baseball. Great baseball, so I encourage people to go see it.
yeah.
The other thing you mentioned, and I was going to end the show, but then you mentioned something I think is important: the affordability. Is the affordability pretty good in Ireland as far as a
Well,
young player that wants to play?
it's a fairly expensive place to play. They do their best to keep costs down. They subsidize strike zone and help their kids
Mhm.
there, the rental of that. So they're doing what they can, but you know, you've got to look. I took great pride. We raised a lot of money even for our Ripken teams. It was only 3,000 New Zealand dollars, 4,000 for them to spend 2 weeks in America. That's pretty
Mm,
affordable. And that was a
sure.
number of years ago now, but you've got to work hard to make it affordable. You've got to, when kids reach that level and they make a national team and, and I'd find folks with money, in New Zealand and elsewhere that had money, and this family doesn't have any money for their uniform or their fees, or I'd get people to sponsor it or support it. I'd never turn away a kid that couldn't afford, to play club ball. You got to find a way. You figure it out. You tuck them into the system and wave it, whatever it takes.
Well, I know Ryan Flynn's already looked at all the major league rosters with the Irish name, so
I may have.
yeah, I figured you have. Hey, listen, buddy, this has been fantastic, folks. I told you, yeah, I know, just because I've known Ryan a long time, I told you this, that he's going to be extremely successful for Irish baseball. I have no doubt in my mind. I think now that you've listened for over an hour, you understand why I said that. That's just a small taste of what Ryan can do in baseball worldwide. And world baseball is lucky to have Ryan Flynn back in the game. Hey, buddy, thanks for joining us, man. This was
Thanks, Ryan.
fantastic.
We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Look forward to seeing you soon. All right, folks. Pete Caliendo, Baseball Outside the Box. Ryan Flynn, CEO, Irish Baseball. Check it out. Check the notes out. Put Ryan's email there, and you can get a hold of him if you've got any questions. And don't forget, Baseball Outside the Box, Spotify, Peter Caliendo, YouTube. Help us out. Get the show out. It's all about education, all about learning. And the more you subscribe to the show, the more obviously we can reach more people. So thank you. Don't forget 3 things: stay healthy, be safe, and God bless you. See you on the next show, everybody. Adios.